rich in-laws offered me $5,000 to leave my son's life. Then they learned I owned a $1 billion farming empire. The morning sun had barely risen over the quiet countryside as Isabella Thompson stepped out of her small farmhouse. She wore faded jeans, old boots, and a worn straw hat. In one hand was a basket of fresh vegetables she had picked before sunrise. To anyone passing by, Isabella looked like an ordinary farmer who had spent her entire life working the land. But appearances can be deceiving. For years, Isabella had chosen a simple life. She never cared about expensive clothes, luxury cars, or giant mansions. After her husband passed away, she raised her only son, Ethan, by herself. Every dollar she earned went toward giving Ethan the best education possible. She taught him one lesson over and over again. Character is worth more than money. Years later, Ethan became a successful software engineer living in the city. He fell in love with a beautiful woman named Olivia. Olivia was kind and respectful. Unfortunately, her parents were nothing like her. Richard and Margaret Harrison were among the wealthiest families in the state. They owned hotels, luxury apartments, and expensive restaurants. They believed money measured a person's value. When Olivia announced that Ethan's mother lived on a small farm, they immediately judged her. Richard laughed. "A farmer?" Margaret smiled politely. "Well, at least she's hardworking." Neither of them had ever met Isabella, but they had already made up their minds. Several weeks later, Olivia invited everyone to a family gathering at an exclusive country club. It would be the first time both families met. Ethan begged his mother to come. "You don't have to dress fancy," he said. "Just be yourself." Isabella smiled. "I've never pretended to be anyone else." The day arrived. Luxury cars filled the parking lot. Men wore expensive suits. Women wore designer dresses. Then, an old pickup truck slowly pulled into the entrance. Several guests looked toward it with amused expressions. Out stepped Isabella. She wore her usual jeans, boots, and simple white shirt. She carried a basket of vegetables as a gift. The valet looked confused. "Ma'am, deliveries are made through the back." Isabella smiled kindly. "I'm here for brunch." Inside the dining room, Richard noticed her immediately. He whispered to his wife, "That must be Ethan's mother." Margaret forced a smile. "Oh my." When introductions began, Isabella greeted everyone warmly. "It's wonderful to finally meet all of you." Richard barely shook her hand. Margaret glanced at Isabella's clothes before looking away. Throughout lunch, the Harrisons dominated every conversation. They talked about private jets, luxury vacations, investment portfolios, new vacation homes. Whenever Isabella tried to speak, someone interrupted her. Finally, Richard asked, "So, Isabella, how many acres do you own?" "About 200. Richard laughed. "My golf course is larger." Everyone chuckled. Isabella simply smiled. She wasn't offended. She had spent years learning that insecure people often speak the loudest. Dessert arrived. Richard leaned closer. "Can I speak with you privately?" They stepped onto the terrace. Margaret followed. Richard removed an envelope from his jacket. Inside was a check. $5,000. He placed it on the table. "We'd like you to accept this." Isabella looked at him calmly. "What for?" Margaret answered. "We believe Ethan deserves a lifestyle that matches our family." Richard continued. "We don't want people asking why his mother is, well," he glanced toward the parking lot, "driving that truck." Margaret smiled awkwardly. "If you quietly stay away from social events, we'll happily provide financial support every month." Silence filled the air. A gentle breeze moved across the terrace. Isabella slowly folded the check, placed it back inside the envelope, then looked directly into Richard's eyes. "I appreciate your concern." She paused. "But I don't need your money." Richard laughed. "Everyone needs money." Isabella reached into her canvas bag. Instead of pulling out cash, she removed a business card. It simply read, "Isabella Thompson, founder and CEO, Green Harvest Global." Richard frowned. His smile disappeared. Green Harvest Global was one of the world's largest agricultural companies. Their farms supplied supermarkets across dozens of countries. Annual revenue exceeded $2 billion. Margaret whispered, "That can't be possible." Isabella continued quietly, "I started the company 30 years ago. I stepped away from public life because I wanted my son to grow up with humility instead."